Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
7:37 on WMAL. I want to mention that once again we're hitting the road this Friday as the WMAL Mornings on the Mall Swing State Road Show makes its third stop in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Join us this Friday as we broadcast live from the Virginian 169 Glendon Street of Vienna. Broadcast begins at 5 a.m. The doors open for breakfast at 6. Once again, that is 169 Glendon Street in Vienna, the Virginia. Hope you'll come out and join us. We are now joined, Brian Wilson and David Ferdoso from the Washington Examiner here today, and we are joined by KT McFarland, Fox News national security analyst and host of FoxNews.com's DEFCON 3 show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. on live.foxnews.com. KT, it's good to have you.
Good morning.
Got to talk about Libya, and as it was discussed last night in the debate. Your thoughts?
Well, it was a really good question. The guy said, who was it who denied enhanced security in Libya and why? And the president dodged the question with lots of references about how no one wants the answer to that question or cares more about it than he does. But in the end, he didn't answer the question. So now you've got to ask, why? Why doesn't he answer that question? It's because it's a cover-up. And it is a cover-up, but thanks to Secretary Clinton's willingness to take the blame, it's a cover-up that's really succeeded, at least so far. And for the administration, that's good enough, as long as this so far extends through Election Day. Because, why? Well, the mainstream media, like an overindulgent parent, has believed the Obama administration's excuses. And anyway, most people don't really care what happens half a world away when they don't have jobs at home.
Yeah, I was watching on CNN where they have the dials, Yeah. And you can see how people are reacting, these so-called undecided voters. And this is a story that just galls me.
Absolutely.
But I noticed that it's flatlined on the CNN dials.
Yeah, I think the reason it flatlines is because it just pales by comparison, and it's so complicated. As Secretary Clinton said, there's such a fog of war that we're not sure what happened. Well, never mind that the fog was deliberately created by the Obama administration fog machine. The real problem with Libya isn't even the cover-up, it's the policy. Al-Qaeda is not on the ropes. It's making a strong comeback, and the comeback is only beginning because with this attack in Libya, we've had no response. So from Al-Qaeda's point of view, that part of the world looks at that and says, wow, they can go kill an American ambassador, and the Americans just fight over whose fault it was, but nobody goes after Al-Qaeda.
KT,
as bin Laden has always said, it's the people will back the strong horse, and for them, it looks like Al-Qaeda's got America on its knees.
What would you say seems like the most plausible explanation for the line we've been getting from the administration that this was actually about a YouTube video?
Well, that's a lie.
But what is the motive here for telling that lie?
Because 5 days before that attack, President Obama went before the Democratic Convention and he said Al-Qaeda's on the ropes. Bin Laden is dead, the war on terror is over, Al-Qaeda's on the ropes. So 5 days later, you have Al-Qaeda attacking American territory, because that's what those embassies are, and consulates, and killing an American ambassador, and 3 others. Just think of what conversation would we be having right now, guys, if instead of having a dead ambassador, we had a kidnapped ambassador, and you had an ambassador on his knees, hands behind his back, blindfolded, with a bunch of guys in ski masks behind him, toting rifles.
Sounds a lot like 1980.
It would have been 1980. And I think in a lot of ways this election is a lot like 1980.
Yeah, but he didn't answer a lot of questions, but specifically he really dodged the answer on that one. Do you think the next debate is just a few days away? It's next Monday. It's supposed to be about foreign policy. Do you, like I suspect, that Libya is going to be a major part of that conversation?
It will, but he'll dodge and weave again. Nobody wants to find out more than I do, blah, 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 blah. And they may buy enough time with that. But the problem is this is not going away. It's going to come back. Because what does Al-Qaeda do? What's its trademark way of doing business? They do something once, and if they succeed, they do it again a second time, but much bigger. The ambassador's death was preceded by a number of smaller attacks, against the British ambassador's motorcade, against the gates of that consulate. Look at September 11th. There was a World Trade Center bombing a decade before. So they learn from their mistakes, they learn from their first action, and then they have a bigger one. So I think by not responding, It's a month later. We've done nothing. We're still having some commission looking into it. By doing nothing, what have you told Al-Qaeda? We're not coming after you. Go ahead.
There's another story out there, though, that sort of seems reminiscent of Fast and Furious, except this time it has to do with weapons in the hands of Syrian rebels.
Well, and that's why the Libyan attack was possible. Is when we get in the middle of somebody else's war and give them weapons, you don't know where those weapons end up. I'm not saying you don't do anything in Syria, but if you look at the example of Libya, a lot of the people who were probably organizing the Al-Qaeda cell in Libya are the people who were our, quote, allies in the Libyan war, including a Gitmo guy who was released from Gitmo. So, first do no harm. And again, I'm always worried about what's in it for my country and how are Americans being treated. And I'm really concerned that in the Middle East, by not responding to this Libyan attack, what we've done is it made it very, very dangerous for any American in the region.
And in Syria, it seems that we're funding the wrong groups, not the more secular groups.
If we're fighting anybody, we ought to make sure that they're the right groups. And I'm not, again, we've got the example of Libya. But one point I want to get back to about I was around in 1980 and was part of the Reagan administration, and
right.
I remember those debates. And it's a very similar situation today. People are not happy. They may like Obama. They like Jimmy Carter. But they weren't happy with the direction of the country. They didn't like the economic situation, and they didn't really like the foreign policy situation. But the Carter administration, and then the mainstream media had painted Ronald Reagan as unacceptable as a candidate for president. He was a dumb Hollywood actor, in fact, a second-rate Hollywood actor. And he was a crazy guy. He was going to get us into wars. But yet, when the debates happened and people could see for themselves, unfiltered by the mainstream media, they thought, oh, Reagan, he's okay. He's not crazy. He's actually not dumb either. He's an acceptable alternative.
Right.
And that's where we are now. So who won the debate last night? I think it was a draw. But in the end, a draw isn't good enough for Obama because
I think you're right.
He could see Romney. He's an acceptable alternative to a president people like, but don't think he's doing a very good job.
Well, KT McFarland, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.